that we act in our own self-defense and we deter further bad behavior from militia groups or from Iran.
And you hear also there a clear threat to respond again if warranted.
This wasn't the first set of attacks against this particular Iraqi facility and others where there are American lives at risk. And today, what we did was take a decisive response.
The U.S. forces that carried out the attacks, meantime, U.S. F-15 aircraft, all returned safely. Meantime, the Iraqi government was notified in advance about these strikes. They're none too pleased about it, though. Cheryl and Lauren.
Doug Luzader, thank you very much.
Well, President Trump and leaders across the country are condemning the horrifying stabbing attack at a Hanukkah celebration.
5 people were hurt in the attack at the home of a New York rabbi. Jackie Ibanez has more on the suspect's dramatic arrest. Jackie, what do we know now?
Lauren and Cheryl, a celebration turns into terrorism after 5 people are stabbed inside a rabbi's home. No one was killed, but 2 victims remain in the hospital this morning. Police say Grafton Thomas barged into the home late Saturday night and started swinging his machete. Witnesses say he also tried to enter the synagogue next door, but he was locked out. Thomas was arrested shortly after the attack after a witness took a picture of his truck's license plate and gave it to police. Reports say he was covered in blood and tried to wash it off with bleach. Thomas pleaded not guilty to attempted murder and burglary. Family and friends say he suffers from mental illness. Reports say he faced several criminal cases in the early 2000s. The New York Post is also reporting he may be tied to another synagogue attack. President Trump is condemning the stabbing, tweeting, "The anti-Semitic attack in Muncie, New York on the 7th night of Hanukkah last night is horrific. We must all come together to fight, confront, and eradicate the evil scourge of anti-Semitism. Lanya and I wish the victims a quick and full recovery." The rabbi, whose home was the center of the attack, now speaking for the first time, saying in part, quote, "Last night's brutal attack sent shockwaves, yet with God's help, the casualties were less extensive than what might have been." New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio says his city will take action in the wake of the attack.
We are in a crisis right now. There's a crisis of anti-Semitism, not only in this region, in this whole country. Public safety is part of the answer here. Visible, strong police presence around the Jewish community.
The mayor will introduce neighborhood safety coalitions and a new curriculum for students dealing with anti-Semitism.
I have been preaching this now to my viewers, I guess going on about 2 years, through some sort of media platforms of mine. And once more, it's just been going in one ear and out the other in regards to all this anti-Semitism. This building, this property, my life has steadily been under attack because of my religious belief in God and through the Son, Jesus Christ. And now it's happening all over the world. It's not just happening in this country, it's happening all over the world. I went to a movie last night. I didn't want to have to wade through the lines pertaining to the new Star Wars movie that recently come out that has broke all-time records pertaining to people wanting to go see. There's nothing wrong with that as long as people can learn to separate the difference between fact and fiction. But whenever you have a society is so engulfed in movies and all these other different ideals that they're not paying attention to reality in regards to the facts, that's whenever you have a society that's turned totally upside down like we are right now. And basically, whenever I come in last night, my phone had a, whatever you call it, warning or whatever, in regard to another attack yesterday. Yesterday, somewhere over in Fort Worth, Texas, where somebody pulled out a long gun, I don't know if it was a rifle or a shotgun, and shot somebody right in the middle of a live audio Facebook deal that was happening, and shot and killed somebody while they was up in the in the choir. And it just so happened somebody was smart enough to be able to identify the danger and move up onto the danger and shot and killed the guy. That is what is going on. Not just here in this country, but throughout this planet. And that is the very thing that I keep telling people that is going on. And they must think that they're looking at some sort of movie or something, some sort of a fantasy movie, kind of like Star Wars. You do have to agree that even though the dynamics and all the special effects pertaining to how that they made Star Wars was a decent, heads up, two thumbs, productive show. But Star Wars is not the reality life that we're all living in today. This is, right here, the anti-Semitism attacks, all the gun violence, all the slaying that's going on, not just here in this country, but all over the world. This is the reality show that we're now looking at unfolding on a day-to-day level that a lot of people don't want to tune into. They'd rather go see a Star Wars fantasy movie. And the proof is in the pudding, because whenever you have records that blows off the charts to the point that the Star Wars movie has become one of the greatest block-selling movies of all time, proof is in the pudding. Rather than people want to look at real stream reality shows, kind of like the Little Rascals that come out back in the 30s or 20s or whenever it did in the 1900s, they rather see stuff that is superficial, super graphic, super animated. That's where society is right now. Not only here in America, but throughout the vast majority of the planet. And it's really, really sad that we live in such of a demented, delirious, delusional state, to the point that people, they claim that they care about their neighbors. They claim that they care about people that innocently get slain. They claim that they care about their children. But yet now, the proof is showing elsewhere. We are living right now in one of the darkest, saddest moments in the history of this planet. And I am so afraid that if somebody does not alert the right wake-up bell in waking up people as we are walking out of 2019 into 2020, we may very well not see too many more years or days or events left here upon to this planet, because once God gets enough of this, He'll put an end to this. He'll put an end to this planet charade that is going on all over the planet pertaining to the unjustness of people who are being violated, innocent people who are being slain, people who are being taken advantage of on a day-to-day, every day, every hour, every minute occurrence. Once God gets enough of it, He'll demand, not ask, not request. He'll demand for His angels to stand guard and to come and take His people out of this anguish, out of this delirious state that we're in right now. And that's whenever God will burn down everything up onto this planet. And if you think you're in misery now, you just wait until God throws this thing off into great tribulation. In other words, every home, every business will be burnt down to the ground, because he's going to come in flaming fire, taking vengeance upon them who know not him and who does not fear him, who does not worship him. And he's going to prove to humanity that what they're doing is wrong. And whenever God says for the Homo sapien race down here to react and to respond in certain ways, it's more than just a requirement. It's what is expected out of us. And whenever we do not participate in the way that God intends for us to participate down here, that's whenever he gets pretty upset. And that's the reason why we're seeing all this abstractness pertaining to weather, abnormalities with our weather, too much rain, too much heat, too much just going from one extreme to another. And until humanity wakes up and realizes what's going on, it's only going to get worse. And whenever I say worse, I'm talking about the ultimate worse is whenever God returns and throws this planet off in the Great Tribulation period. Great Tribulation. Like man has never, ever seen before. And I'm really surprised that he hadn't already done it. And the only reason why that he hadn't already done it is because of the saints of God and because of the Lord Jesus Christ that continues to keep making intercession prayer for the stupidity of humanity. But I'm pretty sure we're right here at the brink towards that no longer being effective. And whenever God the Father says enough is enough, pertaining to smelling the stench of all the sin and all the wickedness that's going on upon to this planet, he will come back and take out his chosen, his people, his elect. He will gather the elect up from the four corners of the earth, and that's whenever he will throw a flamethrower up onto this planet like man has never seen before, and that's whenever humanity will go through a suffering period such as they have never, ever imagined, that will turn cities, communities, states, countries into total chaos. That's what people continues to keep knocking on the door. Every time they come out here, 291 Thompson Road, Sharon, Tennessee, zip code 38255, they're not agitating Juby. They're agitating what Juby stands for. They're agitating Juby's God. They're agitating the very creator that not only created Juby, but created all entities that we know of. And to think that the judicial system in this area has sat back and tolerated this and allowed for this to occur, going on now 5 years. 5 years of mental, psychological anguish that Tommy Moore and Tommy Thomas and all these so-called church-going members have been a part of, because they can't deny that as much material that I have put out there to society to observe and look at, they can't deny that they wasn't aware of what was going on, just like you can't deny with all these special programs that keep coming on pertaining to the president, talking about this slaying and that slaying and this murder and that murder and this gruesome slaying, you can't tell me that society was not aware of what was going on. Sad. Extremely sad.
Back to you guys.
Jackie, thank you very much.
Well, more violence at places of worship. 2 people were killed yesterday when a gunman opened fire at a church during Mass just outside of Fort Worth, Texas. Police say 2 armed parishioners returned fire, killing the gunman and ending the shootout in 6 seconds. Police now praising their quick response for saving a number of lives. The motive behind that shooting, still unknown.
Well, North Korea.
I made a letter that I sent out to Homeland Security late yesterday evening, and I'm just going to go ahead and tell you what it said in response to me being upset and heartbroken because of that event over by Fort Worth, Texas. But I have analyzed the situation pertaining to the Revolutionary War and the Civil War here in America. And whenever you're talking about the extremes of 2 different groups of people at one another's throat to the point that they're actually trying to dissolve or they're trying to eliminate, eradicate each other. That's what the definition of war means. When you have 2 separate entities that's trying to take each entity out. But even during the Revolutionary War and even the Civil War, I don't think it reached the point where people deliberately walked into a church while people was praying, innocently praying, not bother nobody, regardless whether it was a synagogue or a church. I don't think that I've ever read in the history books where you had vigilantes, maniacs, people that was just crazy out of their freaking minds that was deliberately walking into the church community to try to take the Christian society out. As bad as it was during the Revolutionary War, as bad as it was during the Civil War. Now, there may have been some incidences that happened that just never was recorded. I'm not saying that it didn't happen. But it wasn't happening on the level of what's happening today. The anti-Semitism is growing dramatically because the Bible is very clear in fulfilling itself by saying that in the last days Satan will rise up in great wrath. Because he's identified and realized that his time is upon him. His time is short, according to Revelations. And because he has realized that he has failed in this competition, in this challenge that he challenged the Heavenly Father thousands of years ago, he realizes that now he is a failure. He is doomed. And he's always been doomed, just like the Lord Jesus Christ said while Jesus was teaching and talking upon the planet. He said that Satan has always been a liar and a murderer from the beginning. The beginning of his existence. Even though God created that being, God did not create the attitude or the personality in that being. That being created its own personality, just like a virus, a growing virus that wants to dissolve and destroy everything around it. That's exactly what has occurred here with Lucifer, with the Antichrist spirit. It has become nothing more than a total parasite or a disease. And the only way to resolve this situation is to dissolve that entity. that spirit, antichrist spiritual entity, the only way to persevere is to get rid of that entity. And that's the very thing that I myself was in favor of doing whenever the Kentucky authorities up in Paducah, Kentucky, working through their federal judges and the Land Between the Lakes events that happened in my life. That is the very thing that the state of Kentucky was protecting. They was protecting the entity of evil. They was protecting the very axis of evil whenever that public offender, I don't forgot his name now, that was assigned to my case, said to me, Dennis, you can't do that. That's a Class E felony. Really? I thought America was built off of the fact towards wanting to combat or do away or destroy evil entities that's bringing horror to people's lives. And come to find out, it wasn't just the state of Kentucky, but it's also the state of Tennessee. It's also other surrounding states that has sat idly by and allowed for their citizens, their tax-paying people, to be run over by the truck again and again and again. In other words, it ain't good enough to be run over once. We're going to back over this person and continue to back over them and hit them and hit them and hit them. I hit them and hit them again and again and again. Isn't that right, Tommy Moore? Isn't that right, Tommy Thomas? Isn't that right? All these churches around here that has sat idly by and allowed for this to escalate and to evolve into what it's escalated into and evolved into. And yet, no, they call themselves godly. They call themselves righteous. They call themselves good. They call themselves the pillars of the community. This country and this planet has been thrown off into the very pits of hell towards people being deceived, bamboozled, towards putting us all in peril now because of what has happened with the adult society. And the teenage and the millennial society is on to the adult society towards just exactly how demented and how wicked that the adult society truly are. You don't think little Johnny knows what mama and daddy's been doing? You don't think little Sally and little Johnny knows how deceitful and how full of hypocrisy that the adult society are? If you don't believe me, you get out here and start asking some of them questions. Ask the kids, ask the children what's going on with the adults, and they'll tell you right away what's truly going on, because the children can see through this smoke screen and they know exactly what's happening. How that the adult society is still trying to cover up for their mistakes. Just like there's people right here within arm's throwing distance that knows that this property and myself and my brother that was on this property, now he's dead now, has been violated again and again and again and they have remained quiet and out of sight and out of mind because they didn't want to become involved. Oh, that's none of my concern, one may say, knowing good and well what was going on, but remained quiet and silent about it. Whenever it comes to the Good Samaritan laws in the Bible Belt area, you can just about pick them all up and throw them out the window. Because those that claim that they have a great incentive towards not wanting to see the innocent be taken advantage of by these monsters, there's very, very few that will speak up in the regard towards defending the innocent. And I'm talking about preachers, I'm talking about politicians, I'm talking about attorneys, I'm talking about elderly people, I'm talking about the general adult society. There's very few of them that will speak up in this regard because they're afraid that if they do the same thing that's happening to me towards me being attacked, they're afraid it's going to happen to them. That they'll be attacked. They'll be targeted by all the hideous evil that is now running rampant, not just throughout this country, but throughout the planet. May God have mercy upon these people's souls, is all I got to say, because of what has been unleashed upon to society.
Has not delivered on its promise of a Christmas gift to the United States, but Kim Jong-un is now calling for positive and offensive measures to protect his country. These remarks coming just days before he's scheduled to give his New Year's address to the country. Now, the U.S. and North Korea have been stalled on nuclear talks.
Let's take a look at shares of Tesla. They've certainly shifted into high gear, and
You got people all over the planet that are talking out of both sides of their mouths. They say one thing, but they intend on something completely different. Regardless whether it be Iran, Russia, Iraq, Pakistan, North Korea. China right now is going through all kinds of grief pertaining to their citizen uprising. You got people down in South America that are going through all kinds of problems, protesters, innocent lives that are being destroyed right now, even as I speak. It's not just happening to 291 Thompson Road pertaining to the St. Dells. It's happening in synagogues. It's happening in churches. It's happening all over this planet.